Hello lovelies, welcome back to my channel. In this video we're going to talk about beef. That's right, beef. There's a lot of misinformation out there. We want to talk about beef and find out if it's really dangerous, should be avoided, if not, how much should we eat, what type of meat should we be eating, and does it play a role in weight loss? Coming right up.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go. By the way, if you guys are new here, my name is Seppi and my channel is all about healthy, sustainable weight loss. So if that's something you're into, make sure you consider subscribing and also hit the bell button so you never miss a video from me. Let's get right into this video and address the most important question. Is meat really unhealthy for us, and is it dangerous? I'm sure you've seen a lot of documentaries, a lot of articles that are out there that talks about meat being very dangerous and the fact that it really affects our health negatively. So is that really true? What type of meat are they talking about? How much are they eating? These are really important questions, and I took the last 2 weeks to really read into all the research that I could find on beef and processed meat online, and this is the result of everything I've learned. So why do they say red meat or beef is bad for us? It's because it causes inflammation. It has a lot of other effects on our bodies. For example, in men, it actually lowers the testosterone production and it increases the estrogen and a lot of other, health effects that it has on us. But in this video, I wanted to really focus on inflammation because inflammation is the root cause of a lot of different issues like arthritis, cancer, and a lot of other diseases that we don't want to really be facing when we get older, right? We have two types of inflammation. We have acute inflammation and we also have chronic inflammation. So chronic inflammation obviously is something that you want to avoid, which is, kind of the built up of a lot of inflammation as something when you don't really use things that are anti-inflammatory. But acute inflammation is something that your body actually needs to survive. You need that to recover. It recovers your muscles. It helps your body to kind of balance, and it also stops from invaders to come into your body. So it protects you against infections and things like that. So that's something that you basically need, and you don't want to entirely avoid inflammation within your diet. I don't know if you guys have seen this video, but we have omega-6 and omega-3s. Omega-6 fatty acids, which are available in poultry, are actually responsible for inflammation and extracting energy from fat sources. But omega-3 fatty acids are in flax seeds and a lot of other foods that I've talked about in this video. So omega-3 sources are responsible for anti-inflammatory responses, and you need a really good ratio of 4 omega-6 to 1 omega-3. So you definitely need to keep in mind that if you're having a lot of meat, you're having a lot of food sources that have a lot of omega-6 in them, you have to really balance it out with a lot of food that has omega-3 in them as well. Now that we've already talked about inflammation and it's not really a big deal anymore, so we know that we're not so scared of inflammation, because everyone that I talk to, they're like, oh my god, it's gonna make me inflamed. It's okay, like you need a little bit of inflammation in your body, to survive. So now that we had that out of the way, I want to talk about the research that I've seen out there. Every single research that I looked into was done on specific grain-fed regular standard meat that you find at grocery stores, and I'm going to talk about different cuts and how you can pick the best grocery store meat, and I'm also going to talk about grass-fed meat and how much better that is and why that's better. But before I get into that, I wanted to talk about the researches that I've read. As I mentioned, a lot of these research used regular standard meat, and they also fed this to the subject every single day, and these subjects didn't really follow a specific diet, so they had their own diet. They were just eating meat every single day. So I'm assuming they weren't really following a nutritionist diet, or they didn't know that they should be taking a lot of omega-3s, and they weren't really specified on what type of meat they were eating, how much fat that specific meat that they were eating had. Was it processed? How was the animal killed? What was the welfare of the animal like? So these are some of the things that I want you guys to pay attention, and I know it sounds like a lot right now, but this is something that I want you to hear, and even if you're not going to take action right away, but I want you to have this in the back of your mind because it's really, really important. I actually read a really interesting article by Harvard Health, and it talks about how all of these researchers use the word high consumption of meat. So therefore that means that if you maybe use it in moderation, you'll be okay, but we're going to talk about that a little bit more as well. There's also another important factor that you really need to keep in mind in terms of consuming beef. Genetics play a big role. Genetics means that how you've been shaped throughout your life, what your parents have been consuming in the past, years. So if your parents have used a lot of animal products, they've been having steak, meat, you're Greek, you're Persian, so you have a lot of meat, these are just some of the things that you should really consider and take into factor. If you actually take a look at Nimai Delgado profile, who is a vegan athlete and really promotes veganism, I really appreciate that, and I think everybody should really consider becoming vegan, especially because of all the environmental factors and our health and everything in general. But you really should consider that your genetics might be a little different, especially since he actually was born and grown up as a vegan. He was never fed meat, so his body really functions differently. If your body is really used to digesting meat, getting the B12, getting the iron from the actual meat for your life, and your parents were well adjusted to that, if you're gonna transfer or transform to become a vegan, you need to really take your time and do a lot of research. Not a road that you want to take really suddenly, especially if you turn vegan right away for weight loss, for example, if that's your specific goal, because there's going to be a lot of changes in your hormones, your mood is going to be all shifted. You might actually get really attracted towards carbs and a lot of maybe junk food, and it's going to make you depressed, and you might just fall into this cycle, and you might go back to meat and then go back vegan again because you lost a bunch of weight when you went vegan, and that's only because you decreased your calories maybe for a while, and that's gonna be stuck in your head because you're gonna think that you went vegan and you lost weight, and you're gonna be stuck in that loop forever, and I don't want that to happen to you guys. So make sure if your decision is to go vegan, take a 10 or 15 year journey to switch into that very slowly. I'm not kidding, because your body knows how to extract vitamins and nutrients from different types of food. You're just not used to having no protein from beans and seeds. So make sure you keep that in mind and take your time when you're gonna make such a big decision to do something like that. I'm personally a fan of lacto-ovo vegetarianism, which is when you actually consume animal products such as eggs and milk and yogurt. Now let's talk about what should you be paying attention when you're buying meat. First, let's talk about organic and inorganic. Most of the meat that you're gonna see is organic. There's not a lot of inorganic meat, but if you're gonna find it in a specific supermarket that it doesn't say the meat is organic, then that's a red flag. That's something you totally wanna stay away from. The reason you don't wanna go inorganic is because they use sewage sludge in the animal's food, which is disgusting. Actual sewage sludge, I'm not joking. And then they also use different types of fertilizers. They use GMO, like genetically modified grains, to feed these animals. So it's actually not really healthy. If you have an animal that you feed them, really unhealthy food, and they're always sick and they're always fat and they can't really go out, they're not eating grass, you don't want to eat the meat of that animal, because that animal is carrying a lot of bad energy and you don't want to be eating it or supporting the industry, honestly. So make sure when you're buying your meat, it's certified. USDA is a company that actually certifies meat in US and Canada, because US and Canada have a relationship together. They have an agreement and they work together. So if you see USDA certified, you can be rest assured that it's a good meat. It's actually organic, so you don't have to worry about it. Usually with organic meat, a lot of them have a label of no hormones added ever. So those are really good labels to look out for, and no antibiotics. You don't want an animal that has been given antibiotics, because you will develop that antibiotic resistance. For example, let's say something bad is going to happen to you, you get into an accident and they need to give you antibiotics, and you have had so much of that meat, you're going to develop a resistance to antibiotics and they won't be able to stop the infection. So it's actually very dangerous, and they don't talk about this enough. So if you're listening to this, make sure that any kind of meat that you buy is always antibiotic free. So let's get a little bit more detailed, and I want to talk about 3 types of meat. We have grain-fed, which is the regular meat. We also have grass-fed, grass-finished. Grain-fed is basically a regular meat. You're not going to see a label that says grain-fed, because it's not like the best thing in the world. So that's not something that you can find. If it doesn't say grass-fed, then it's definitely grain-fed. These poor animals only eat grains for their whole lives. You know, when you eat a lot of grains, pasta or rice, you gain a little bit of weight, right? So they feed these animals a lot of grains so they get fat faster so they can slaughter them a lot faster. Of course, because of that, these animals are going to have a lot of inflammation, so their omega-6 ratio is going to be much higher to their omega-3s. These animals, of course, are going to have a lot more inflammation compared to an animal that's eating grass, but it's not that you have to completely avoid this type of meat. They are delicious because they're very fatty. You're going to like the taste a lot better than compared to a grass-fed meat. But what you need to do is you have to pay attention to a few details when you're shopping for a grain-fed or a regular meat. You have to make sure it has the least amount of fat. You have to get the leanest cut. So if you're going to get ground beef, you're going to go for extra lean ground beef. If you're gonna go for a steak, make sure you go for a steak that it's okay if they have a little bit of fat around them, but the fat inside of the meat, which is called marbling, you wanna really avoid that. Let's say even if you go with the leanest cut of meat, remember, this is the type of meat that they use in that research. So you have to, number one, make sure you have a healthy, balanced diet. So you have a lot of healthy omega-3 sources to balance the high content of omega-6 in this type of beef. Omega-3 sources, again, check out the video here and you guys are gonna know all about that. So make sure you add that to your diet. But the most important thing is that you have to use it in moderation. Once a week, once every 2 weeks is the maximum I really recommend for you to be using this type of meat, especially when you go out. Don't get a lot of processed meats. Processed meat is the worst. I'm not gonna really get into that because we're just talking about beef in this video, but those are some of the things that you wanna avoid. Especially, let's say if you're going out for nachos and they're gonna have beef in it, just don't get the beef. Just say no beef or no meat on the actual nachos, or don't just get it from restaurants. Two things I wanted to mention about burgers. You could add rosemary and oregano, which actually lowers the lipid profile, and grilling burger helps removing a lot of fat from it, so that should really help. Okay, now let's talk about grass-fed and grass-fed, grass-finished. Grass-fed is basically grain-fed. So if you see a label of grass-fed, don't pay anything extra for it. You are looking for 100% grass-fed or grass-fed, grass-finished label, and make sure they're certified. So don't pay anything extra for grass-fed beef. Why? Because these animals are actually eating grass for 10 months of their lives, and the last 4 months they're gonna feed them grain to make sure that their meat is fattier. A lot of people actually don't like the taste of grass-fed. Like, let's say if you go to a steakhouse and have steak and they're going to give you a grass-fed steak, it's not going to be as tender, so people think that it's a lower quality of meat. So most of the steakhouses use grain-fed beef to give you as a steak, unless if you ask for it, right? So the summary of this is that don't buy grass-fed. Make sure it's 100% grass-fed and grass-fed, grass-finished. Grass-fed, grass-finished is basically the cow or the animal is eating grass all of their lives for 30 months. They actually live a lot longer because they don't get fat as fast, right? The grass-fed, grain-finished, they get really fat at the last 4 months, so they only live for 14 months and they kill them right away. But the grass-fed, grass-finished one lives for 30 months. So that's what you want to go with. Grass-fed, grass-finished animals are not in cages, they're roaming free, they're eating grass and they're taking their time. You know, they're growing up, they're not getting hormoned up, they're not getting injected. You know, they're actually very healthy. So if you're supporting the environment and if you care about the welfare of the animals, grass-fed, grass-finished beef is the way to go. A lot of people honestly come up to me and they ask me, oh, what is this grass-fed, grass-finished story? Like, why do we have to pay so much extra for this beef? They're just trying to make some money out of us. Absolutely not. This beef is actually so healthy. It has a very good ratio of 2:1 between omega-6 and omega-1, which is really, really good for beef. And it's basically very, very close to fish. So it's just as healthy as fish. Aside from omega-3, grass-fed, grass-finished beef is also high in vitamin A, vitamin E, and a cancer-fighting antioxidant, which is called glutathione. So all in all, I just wanted to summarize everything in this video and remind you that beef is not bad. Make sure you stick to grass-fed, grass-finished as much as you can. If you can't find it in the grocery store and you have to with the grain-fed option, make sure you get the leanest cut and the least marbling. If you're gonna go with the grain-fed option, make sure you only go once a week or once every 2 weeks maximum. And with the grass-fed option, maybe twice a week maximum, right? Because you're gonna add a lot of other protein sources to your diet. diet as well, like fish and chicken, so you kind of want to balance everything out because they also have omega-6 and omega-3. So you gotta really stay healthy and use different types of sources of meat every single day, or kind of protein every single day in your diet, right? After all, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing every single day to my channel. It makes me really, really happy. I put a lot of time and research into this video, and I really hope you guys found it helpful. If you have anything to add to this video, make sure you comment down below, like and subscribe. As always, hit the bell button so you don't miss a video from me. See you guys in the next video. Bye bye.